Tess Marshall, a woman who wants to do a job interview at a company, is forced to rent a house as a temporary residence. Tess arrived at the Detroit, Michigan house and immediately checked the house key code that was kept in the front porch box. Because it was raining heavily that night, Tess rushed into the house with her suitcase and other things. After opening the key holder there, Tess couldn't find the key to the house's door. He called the admin of the house rental, which turned out to be unreachable. Tess left a message that she was at Barbarian's house but couldn't get inside. Tess had to wait in the car to be sure about the house she rented. Not long after, the lights in the house came on. Tess went straight to the house again and rang the bell repeatedly. It turned out that a man named Keith rented the house at the same time and hour. After seeing the proof of Tess' booking, they couldn't help but share a room and live together in the house. After a long debate, Keith relented to sleep on the couch and Tess was able to sleep soundly in the bedroom. Before going to bed, the two young people had time to relax together and help make the bed. Tess blushed at Keith's very warm behavior towards her. Until late at night, Tess awoke to a strange sound. He opened his eyes and realized that the door to his room was open. Tess approached Keith, who was delirious quite badly that night. Keith got scared himself because he was surprised to have Tess in front of him. Tess asked if Keith had opened the bedroom door. Keith swore that he didn't do anything at all and slept on the couch. Tess went back to sleep and locked her bedroom door tightly. The next morning, Tess was almost late for the interview and rushed to get ready to leave. By then Keith had left the house and had left a message for Tess. Keith asked Tess to leave the house keys in the front lockbox and they would meet again this afternoon. Keith even encouraged Tess to have a successful job interview. Tess seemed enthusiastic about working for Catherine James, a documentary director who was looking for some research for her next film. On the way to Catherine's company, Tess was very surprised to see the condition of the environment near her inn. All the houses there looked worn and run down. Even some houses collapsed and no other occupants. After going through a lengthy interview stage, Tess said that she was staying at an Airbnb in the Baltimore area. Catherine was quite surprised to hear that and said that Tess shouldn't be staying in the area. Catherine advised Tess to be more careful while living there. Tess returned to her lodging house and it was still quiet with no other residents there. Strangely, when they were about to go inside, a man ran after Tess and kicked her out of the house. The man said that Tess shouldn't have lived in that house. Tess calls the police to report the stranger assaulting her. After everything calmed down, the girl was doing her usual activities in the bathroom. Tess is looking for a supply of tissue at home because the toilet paper runs out. He entered the basement, which is usually used as a storage area for goods. After finding a tissue and about to go back to the bathroom, the basement door closed itself and was locked from the outside. Tess was very panicked, even more so because her cell phone was in the room. In addition, the house key that should have been left in the lockbox was carried away because Tess was scared when being chased by a foreign man. Tess waited for Keith to come home while examining the contents of the cellar. Accidentally, Tess found a rope planted in the wall. He pulled the rope, which turned out to be a secret door open. Inside the secret door, it was very dark without the slightest light. Tess reflected the light from the mirror into the dark hallway. He goes inside to check the secret room and finds a room with a mattress and camera in it. Not only that, buckets of paint and blood stains from human palms also adorned the walls of the room. Tess ran scared back into the basement and saw that Keith was home. Tess knocked on the cellar's ventilation window and handed Keith the house keys. Luckily, Keith was willing to help Tess and get her out of the basement. Still shaking, Tess explained the discovery of the confinement room in the basement. Tess asked Keith to get out of the house before anything bad happened to them. Keith tried to calm Tess down and said they would be fine. Since Tess insisted on leaving the house, Keith checked down into the basement. Tess had to wait for Keith and propped up the basement door with a chair so it wouldn't lock again. Since Keith didn't come out, Tess went into the secret room to find out where her male friend was. Tess opened a secret door beside her which turned out to be leading down a very deep staircase. Keith shouted from downstairs asking Tess for help. The girl had to go downstairs and found an empty iron cage. The dark underground passageway was much wider than imagined. Tess walked alone in the dark alley until she found Keith, who was crawling with fear. The man said there was a stranger in the underground passage who bit his leg. He asked Tess to help him out of the underground. The figure of a female monster who was not clothed called the mother started attacking and banging Keith's head against the wall, repeatedly. Elsewhere, a veteran actor named Age is exposed to a romance scandal with his film co-star, Melissa. The rising artist accused Age of raping her. Age lost his work contract only because rumors of a rape scandal that began to spread filled the tagline of the mass media. Age immediately hired a lawyer to defend him in court later. He consulted with financial management who stated that he was bankrupt. The owner of the rental house in Michigan plans to sell his house in order to get money to pay the stifling bills. Age's finance manager advised against selling the house in Michigan because it was located in an inconspicuous location. Not wanting to sink into economic hardship, Age was desperate to go out of the state to sell his house. The management of the artist was confused because Age was under police surveillance but ran away. Age arrived at his property at night. He was surprised that there were other people's belongings in the door blocking the basement room. Age immediately contacted Airbnb management to find out who was using the house. Unfortunately, Airbnb said they didn't know anything. That night Age spent time in a nightclub and met an old friend. Age admitted that he never raped Melissa because the relationship on the bed was done voluntarily and enjoyed each other. Age came home in Detroit, Michigan half drunk. He called Melissa to apologize for what happened that night. Unfortunately, Melissa's cell phone number could not be reached. Age messaged Melissa to call her back immediately because she wanted to apologize. In the morning, Age unloaded the suitcase and bag from the woman who had rented her house. From the laptop the woman found was named Tess Marshall. After the incident in the dungeon, Keith has died while Tess's whereabouts are unknown. While relaxing at the dining table, Age heard a noise coming from the basement. Age immediately changed his clothes and brought a knife to check the basement. He believes that an intruder is hiding in the basement. The secret door in the basement at that time was closed. However, Age looked at the mirror placed in front of the wall and found a rope behind the storage shelf. He pulled the rope and instantly the secret door opened wide. Age entered the dark hallway and found a secret room there. After checking the room, Age couldn't find anyone there. Age rushes upstairs to find out how to sell a house with a secret room in the basement. To sell a house, Age must know the specifications of each room in his house, including the length and width of the secret room located in the basement of his house. Using a meter, Age counted every inch of the room in the basement. The man found another door that led to a secret place deep beneath his house. Age continued to calculate the height of the descending stairs, which reached 9 feet or about 2.7 meters. Arriving at the ground floor, Age was still counting the length of the hallway. After 10 feet away, Age found a room with a light on. He approached the room with the small television playing How to Care for a Baby. At that moment, The meter that H was carrying moved by itself. H let go of the automatically rolled meter and stopped right in the middle of the dark alley. H shone down the hall with a flashlight and prepared to attack with the bread knife. Frightened, H ran away from the creature and fell into a human trap. Tess Marshall immediately covered H's mouth, who was screaming in pain. H's hand was scratched by his own knife because he fell into the trap hole. Time travels back decades before H and Tess were trapped by demons. That morning a man named Frank came out of his house, which was H's house. Frank was the owner of the house long before H owned it. Detroit, Michigan area at that time was still beautiful with densely populated residential conditions. Frank immediately went to the supermarket to buy plastic flooring and baby diapers and birth care supplies. After getting everything he needed, Frank followed a blue car driven by a beautiful woman. After finding the girl's house, Frank changed into a workshop outfit. He pretended to be a plumber and checked the woman's toilet. Frank locked the woman's bathroom window and said goodbye. Arriving at the house, Frank's neighbor named Doug said he wanted to sell his house because the neighborhood was damaged. Frank just said that he would never move out of that house. Frank rushed into the cellar where woman's scream sounded heartbreaking. The scene returns when Tess ties H's wound using pieces of cloth from her clothes. Tess asks H to stay calm and not to scream when the monster woman approaches. "I'm still confused and can't think straight." He kept screaming as he asked what happened. Not long after, the woman was heard walking towards them. H pointed his flashlight up and saw long, dirty and wet hair hanging down. The mother handed H a pacifier as if she wanted to take care of the prey she had caught. Tess whispered, begging H to suck the drink in the pacifier or else the mother would be angry. H refused to drink it while Tess immediately sucked the dirty pacifier and swallowed the drink inside. Because H was still reluctant to drink from the pacifier, the mother went downstairs and hugged her favorite prey, who was always obedient to her, Tess Marshall. The monster called Tess baby. When he rubbed H's face, the wealthy actor screamed in fear, making the mother furious. H's body was dragged out and carried into the nursery. The mother forced H to drink from her own breasts. Seeing an opportunity in the narrowness, the shrewd Tess immediately ran away. He had seen how H was tormented by being forced to drink from the breasts of a mad monster. Tess accidentally stepped on a wire meter which made a pretty loud sound. The mother immediately came out and chased after Tess, the prey who had been considered as her own baby. Tess couldn't get out of the basement because the door was locked. He had to get out through the window and break the ventilation glass. As the monster gets closer, Tess is helped by a strange man who called her a few days ago named Andre. Meanwhile, the mad mother revealed her form with hideous black nails sticking out half of her body from the broken ventilation glass. Andre said that Tess had to get out of the house because it was a very evil place. Andre invites the woman to come with him to hide in the water tower. Tess said there was one guy who was trapped in the basement and couldn't get out. Tess insists on helping H, who is still in the devil's trap. Andre said that tonight, the female monster will come out of her house and look for prey. If Tess didn't leave immediately, then the mother would take Tess back into the dungeon. Tess still insists on calling the police to help H. Andre is reluctant to interfere because there are other things far more terrible than that crazy woman. He advised Tess to go and meet her at the water tower if anything bad happened. At the same time, H walked out to save himself. He found a bell at the crossroads of the hall leading to a suspicious room. The mother seems to have returned and is looking for H's whereabouts. Strangely, the female monster did not dare to approach the room and left H. The actor entered the room and found a bed and other household appliances. Elsewhere, Tess walked to the supermarket to borrow a phone and called the police. Meanwhile, H finds a woman's yellow dress with floral motifs similar to the clothes of the woman who was kidnapped by Frank. Immediately, H heard the sound of an old man coughing on the bed. It turned out that the old man was Frank, who as a young man loved to kill and kidnap girls. Tess manages to call the police and ask for help searching an abandoned house in Brightmoor. Seeing Tess's insane look, the cop almost ignored her. With a disdainful eye, the cop asked a lot of questions before complying with Tess's request. At the same time, old Frank asked H to get him a drink. After drinking, Frank again pointed at the table as if asking for something. H didn't know what the old man wanted and moved the table near the bed. Outside the house, the police again cast doubt on Tess's report. They did not want to check into the house at all because there was no sign of crime in it. The police officer left as soon as he heard reports of the shooting in Midland. Tess couldn't understand how the state apparatus could underestimate her report. At the same time, H saw something strange in the men's room. Right on the shelf next to the television, there are hundreds of film cassettes with terrible titles. Some tapes called Asian Biters, Redheads Doctors, Fat Women and so on. H played a cassette film that was already installed and entitled Red Hair Gas Station. As it was getting darker, Tess worked up the courage to sneak into the house by breaking the window. Tess took her car keys and quickly got out of the house. At the same time, H had just finished watching a video of the torture and murder that Frank committed when he was young. Frank pulled a gun from the desk shelf and shot himself in the head. Tess, who was about to leave the place, was surprised by the figure of a naked female monster. The monster ran to the car and was immediately run over by Tess, pinning it against the wall of the house. The mother was still too strong and tried to break Tess' windshield. After a while, the crazy monster seemed motionless as if it had died. Tess got out of her car planning to save H. The girl propped up the basement door with the chair and got down using a makeshift flashlight. H, who was scared, came out of Frank's room and brought a gun just in case. When he saw someone in front of him, suddenly H shot Tess, thinking the girl was a crazy monster. Despite being shot in the waist, Tess still regained consciousness and was taken out of the house. Tess was very surprised to see the condition of her car's smoky engine while the figure of the creature she had hit had disappeared. Tess immediately took H away to the water tower where Andre was hiding. Andre takes Tess and H into the tower and tells them who the mother really is. It turned out that the woman had lived in the house for more than 40 years. The crazy woman is the daughter of Frank, the owner of the house before H bought it. Frank often brought women into his house and had children. The children of Frank's descendants married each other to produce a disabled woman who now inhabits the basement. Andre advised Tess and H to stay overnight at his house and head to town in the morning. The man assures that his house is safe from monster intrusion because the mad woman never comes to his hiding place. All of a sudden, that crazy woman appeared and broke the wall of the water tower. The mother strangled Andre and removed his hand from the man's body. Blindly, the mad woman killed Andre instantly. Edge and Tess ran to save themselves and climbed to the top of the tower. Arriving at the top, the figure of the terrible monster was still chasing the two of them. Edge, who was scared, dropped his gun and made himself even more useless. To save himself, Edge is again concerned with his own ego and throws Tess' weak body from the top of the tower. Seeing that the baby is about to die, the mad monster jumps in to catch Tess Marshall. Without regret, Edge peeked at the base of the tower and saw the blood flowing around the mother. Edge rushed downstairs to get the gun and check on Tess' condition. Miraculously, the clever woman still survived because she was protected by the body of a mad monster. Tess tried to get up and sit up though her head was still spinning. Edge actually apologized and explained if he had made a mistake. He almost so twisted the story and said that Tess slipped while on top of the tower. Edge brought Tess to leave that place immediately. The mother got up again and immediately strangled Edge. Both of the man's eyeballs were pierced with his long fingernails until a reddish-white liquid ran down his cheeks. The crazy monster easily split Edge's head into 2 pieces. Satisfied with killing the man, the female monster again approached Tess Marshall. It seemed that the woman liked Tess very much, and thought of her as her own biological child. In fact, seeing the wound on Tess' waist, the monster melted its heart. The female monster looked panicked when she heard Tess whimper in pain. Tess touched the ground to pick up the gun that had fallen from Edge's body. The monster kept pointing towards the house and coaxing Tess to come with him. Tess continued to whimper in pain as she shook her head. He put a gun to the mother's cheek, while the female monster gave Tess a sweet kiss on the forehead with her hand. And Tess shoots the mother dead and manages to survive despite her injuries. Tess runs away from the dangerous place and the movie ends.